Sewing some tulle onto the area of the wave, the white frothy part of the wave, and I'm sewing it on with invisible thread over this with a straight stitch so that it's not so noticeable. And don't twist it too much. I'll twist it more as it goes away from you to make the rolling wave just a little smaller. Okay. And then I'm going to do a straight stitch. And as it comes towards this, then I'll just slowly twist it a little bit at a time. Because if I twist it too much, then it looks too ropey. And I want it to look more like an overflowing, turning over on itself roll of water. Let's see. I think that works. I think that works. Oh, now this is too much. So I'm going to come back up here and make this smaller. Smaller, less noticeable. This is way down the beach. So I've got to work with scale. All right, I like that. Then what I found is here is the picture of the white frothy wave here. And you notice it's white, blue, white, blue. Well, I found this great yarn in the yarn that my sister-in-law gave me. And the further away that wave is, the more bluish it looks. Remember, everything's kind of grayed in the distance. So I'm going to run this along right on top of the tulle. Let's see what this looks like. All right, now what I'm going to do is cut a mostly all white piece and put on top of it so that the blue will show here and there, but mostly I want the white. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's cool. That is really cool. All right, so now I'll put this starting about here with a tiny zigzag. I like it, and I like how it stands up. What got me thinking about how to make waves was I saw a woman at a quilt show used lace, and I thought that is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Okay, I need to put more up here. But isn't this fun? You can make this, do whatever you want. Let's see if we think that's going to do it. I think I want a little bit more tulle. Okay, so I took the stitches out of this because I stitched right along the middle and it just looked too contrived. So what I'm trying to do now is go back and just stitch along the inside edge of the tulle so I can still fluff it and kind of push it down so it kind of hides the attachment, makes it look fluffier. Let's see if you see what I mean. Like this. So I don't want it to look too contrived. I think I need to take out some more of the stitching up here. So I'm just pulling it up and going with my sharp little scissors and cutting the thread that attached it so I can re-sew it. Alright, so now it's loose, and I do have to attach it, but let's see if I can just do right along that inside edge. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to do a very light zigzag, narrow, very long stitched zigzag to make this part lay down just a little more. Okay. So here's my waterline, and I'm not sure if it's where I want it to be. I think that the line stands out, it just stands out a little too much. It's too easy to see that it's a type of yarn. So I'm going to try one more thing. I'm taking Angelina fibers and crunching them up to give them a kind of rounded feel. But I'm trying to kind of tangle it into each other so it's not quite so wispy. I'm going to use a straight stitch to try to hide it because I don't want it to look sewn down. I probably could do this by hand, but I want to go ahead and get it done and show it to you. So now what do you think? I think that's a lot better. I'm going to take tonight to think it over. Today I'm working a little bit more on the water. So this is what I have added today. I added some of this roping, which I thought would, and I like it. I thought it would add to it. I like it, but I couldn't quite use it to get the shape I wanted. And I put some up in here behind things. Then I added some tulle, and then I added some, this I think a bag of big glass beads came in. It's kind of a plastic mesh like you would use for an onion bag. So I added some of that too to get some of the frothy look. Then I went back and added a little bit more of this yarn and extended this further down to the scenery. So I'm pretty happy with it. I need to take some more time and live with it. I have lived with it now for about 2 days since I worked on it last and knew that I needed to come back and do a little bit more for the waves. I also went back in with my woolly nylon and did a motion like the water curling, getting ready to curl over to be a wave. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm now just looking to see what is the next step. What is the next thing I want to do? So I think I'm going to put in some white thread because I think I want to work a little more in area like this. And I think I want to lighten up a little bit of the sky a little bit more. And I think I can do that best with some white thread. So let me get that loaded and we'll start again. I'm doing the lightening of the sky. Adding some white stitching to kind of bring up more light. Try to keep it from being too dark. think it is bringing it out just a little more light. Now I'm going to lighten up part of the water where there are a few white caps out beyond the surf line. Now I'm going to go up into the sun-reflected sky and do just a little bit of highlighting. I'm going to take out some of these stitches. It's just too much. That's the thing I love about it. It's so much harder to do this when you're painting. But doing it with fabric and thread, you can keep changing things. It's wonderful. I think I'd always rather paint with fabric now. Plus, I love how tactile it is. I think for right now, I'm going to take a break, look at it a little longer. I like the sky lighter, but I think it's about done. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to trim it now. I think I've done all my thread painting and embellishing. I hope you can see it well. And I'll take it up with me tonight and probably do a little bit of editing if I see threads I don't like where they are. For now, I think I'm pretty done. So, what I did was it was time to trim it and square it up. So, I'll tell you briefly. I meant to film it. I got busy and forgot. I just get so excited I want to do it. I tried to roughly lay it where I thought it should be. And then I took a long 24-inch ruler, laid this where I thought it was straight, then put this where it lined up with a line on the cutting mat, and then took and cut that straight, knowing I could always adjust it a little bit if I needed to. So once I had what I felt like was a square or straight side, then I turned to the top. Since I knew this was straight because I cut it with a straight edge, I laid this up along a line on the mat. Then I was able to lay this ruler along the edge, having this end line up with both the line and the already cut edge. Then once it lined up, I knew I had a square corner. So I cut across this way. Then I just did the same thing, turned it around, lined it up with a line on this cutting mat, then lined the ruler up with the line on the cutting mat and the fabric, and then cut again. And I did the bottom edge last. Now it's straight and square, and what I'm going to do is probably give it a quick little press just to make sure everything's laying flat. It's not always easy to have a quilt lay flat for you, but I think this is pretty good, all things considered. Then I'm going to find a backing for it, and then I'm going to quilt. When I quilt it, I'm going to try to quilt it so that it blends in, and I'm just going to quilt along like right here, right above here, so that I don't interfere with the work I've already done, but I secure it to the batting and the backing. I'm not happy with the breaking wave line. It's okay, but it doesn't excite me. So after taking a few hours with this quilt, I've decided I'm just not happy with the water. And so I went online and looked up to see how some other quilters felt about it. Then I looked up some pictures of waves, trying to get an idea of what really makes a shoreline look like it's got the crashing waves on it. So I'm going to take everything off and try again. And this is a good thing, because sometimes just throwing more stuff at it doesn't really work. Then I went through my odds and ends and my lace buckets, and I found some interesting things. Like here's some regular lace. Then I found some sequins in a wavy look. That sounds good. Then I found the equivalent of Angelina, but in a ribbon with some pearlescent glitter, opalescent glitter. Found some regular lace. Found some really soft chenille cord. See, I saved bits of everything. Then look at this interesting lace. Looks like a wave, don't you think? So, I've got these things plus what I was already using. I'm going to pull everything off this, and then I'm going to try again, because I think I can do something better. So I'll be right back once this is all taken out. Alright, I have taken off everything that I had added at the end to enhance the look of waves. And now I'm going to lay down some more darker fibers so that I have something to show through whatever technique I'm going to use. I'm going to jump in and put start putting things down. I've got to make a decision. And I don't want to allow myself to get nervous about jumping back in. So, sometimes when you take everything away and start over, you can be afraid you're going to make the same mistake. So you just have to jump in before you get thinking about it too much and do it. That's always how I have handled unknown things in my life. It's like jump in, figure out along the way. And it's worked for me. For the most part, it has worked. Taking this ribbon that is opalescent and using this as my base. And remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. You're giving the illusion. That's the big difference here. It's an illusion. I'm going to try not to pile things on quite so much this time. I have this wonderful stuff, and I have this that is amazing, and then I have this. So I'll pull out the things I really would like to use. I'm not sure I'm going to use any of the laces. I think I'm going just a touch more realistic in a way. I think I'm going to go with a few pieces. As enticing as that was to use, I think I'm going to leave that off. I'm trying to learn not to do too much. Sometimes it's best to pull back away, just a touch. I'm going to straight stitch right here at the base of the curved lace to emphasize that that is the edge. It's an undulating wave. So let me try this. Just use a straight stitch. I really want that to stand out. Part of my problem yesterday was I didn't have enough natural feeling undulation. So let me try this now. Let's see how it did. Yes, I think that is better. It really gives it, I think it really gives it an undulating look. I'm now sewing on a neutral inner border, which I compare to a matting board if you're having a painting frame. I think that it gives the eye a restful place to stop before I do a black outer border, which will represent the picture frame. I'm making sure to miter my corners. I want it to look very professional so that it adds to but does not distract from this art quilt. Careful not to iron any bits of laces and plastics that might melt. Here's my corner. I'm putting on now the last 2 pieces of my outer border. I went ahead and made the outer border 3.5 inches. I feel like I can always cut it down if I think it's too wide once I get it on.
Stay informed at WFDD.org.
3.5 would give me a finished 3-inch border. I've starched them really good so that I can get sharp miters. And I stop 1/4 of an inch before the edge. I cut a bigger piece than the width of the fabric to leave hanging. I take and fold the quilt so that the 2 adjoining sides meet right along that seam allowance. Then I take and make sure to press both of these border pieces. I want them nice and flat before I mess with them. I'm going to take this ruler right here, put it along this quilt, and then take my tailor's chalk and mark right here. You see where I marked that? Then, that way I know it's right in line. Then I'm going to take that mark and fold it and press it. Then I open it back out just to make sure, yep, right on the mark. Okay, I'm going to do that to all 4 corners and then I can sew them. I like to start in the corner and sew to the outer edge of the border. Get both fabrics lined up right on that crease. That's why I like to crease it, because you don't have to mark both sides. But I go ahead and pull everything together. Pull these edges together. It takes a couple extra minutes to be this careful, but it's certainly worth it if you don't have to take it apart and redo it. Okay. And there is our miter. Looks pretty good to me. All right, I realized I haven't been taping the steps for this to complete this landscape, beach landscape quilt. So I'm going to start now and catch you up. Well, yesterday I finished the top for good. Took it up to show him my beautiful quilt top, which I thought now was amazing. And the first thing he said is, "What's that lump in the sky?" And I was like, oh no, oh no. And you know, I didn't get angry because I thought, okay, he has good eyes and doesn't censor his real feelings. But thank goodness, because the last thing I need is somebody say, "Oh, isn't that wonderful?" I come to him mainly for the truth and for the assurance that I will get the most honest response, because that's what I need to make things better. And he cares enough to look, to study it, and give me his honest response. So what I did is I came back in here yesterday when I thought I was done and replaced all of this right here. And actually, replace is the wrong word. I said, do I tear up what I've already got? And I said, nope, I don't think so. So what I did is I got new fabric out and I smoothed this out. And as usual, he was right. And that is why I do value his opinion. So I came back in here, replaced fabrics, just trying to lighten up the sky a bit. So then once I did that, I came in. I even did some stitching in the sky with gray thread on the darker areas so that they would have some highlights too. But I think there's something very pleasing now about the sky, and it doesn't look quite so lumpy. Yes, this was an important part of the sky, because let me show you my inspiration. The sun rays peeking through the break in the clouds is a very important part of this scene. So I needed to keep that, but I needed the sky to look less contorted, less struggle. No one wants to look at too much busyness that doesn't add to what I'm trying to say with this. So I'm very pleased. I'm glad I took the time. You know that I came in and redid the ocean. And now in this case, I ripped everything out and did it again because I wanted it to be right. And you know what I love? This little, it's an onion bag type of thing, plastic, you know, nylon, whatever. And I love that as the spray. So I'm very tickled with how it turned back out, and it was the right decision. Now, and I went down to all my corners where I had done the miters, and I haven't pressed this out, but I reinforced those corners with a little hand stitch right there, and so they're all in good shape. And then the miter continues across, just as if it were a frame. You know, that's how a frame is joined. And so now I'm going to get ready and press it. But what I have done, I picked out a backing, and I didn't know what to back this with. but I kind of, you might be surprised at what I chose, but this backing is the most popular backing I've ever used. Normally you don't get that many comments about quilt backing, but this was put out by Connecting Threads probably 8 years ago, and I wish I had bought everything they had. I get more comments on this backing than any. So I only had a small amount, and I thought, perfect, this is what I'll use it for. But I tried to pick out something that people really liked. So what I did then is I took my quilt top, faced up, and then I put the backing face down, so the right sides together, and then on top of the backing I put some cotton batting. It speaks for itself with the fabric and the thread painting. I'm not going to make this a dimensional quilt, so I didn't want a high loft, so I went ahead with a good cotton, bright and beautiful, or bright and warm batting. So what I have to do now is press and then do quilting. And what I've decided is I'm going to do quilting along the forms I've put in here. I'm not going to do quilting for quilting's sake, but this is beautiful as it is. And to do this quilting, I've chosen some threads. I don't want to choose a thick thread that's going to stand out. I want the quilting to just attach and secure and not be obtrusive. So this quilt is not about the quilting. The quilting is just to keep it steady, stable, so you can enjoy the work of the fabric and thread. So now I sewed this into an encased, kind of like a pillowcase, and turned it because I didn't want binding. I didn't want binding taking your eye away from the quilt. So this one just kind of fades right out like a frame. And that's how I'm ending this. So I will be back once I press it and we get ready to quilt it. So I've pressed it, and now I want to slip stitch the opening closed. So I'm going to go in here, down low, bury the knot, then come back, making sure to hold it even and nice, and then start sewing. And you notice how I use stitches from inside the opening because I don't want them to show at all. Dip back down in here and dip inside here. I'm sewing it actually kind of inside. And this is a very special quilt that I have spent hundreds of hours on, and I want to finish it with the same care that I used while making it. And I want this edge to look totally smooth. No stitches, no thread showing from the top. There's something about sewing by hand that connects you with women and some men who have sewn by hand through the ages to make ordinary clothes, utilitarian objects, or exquisite gowns and beading, but it does connect us to people who came before. Okay, so to begin my quilting, I'm going to come in from the edge. All right. I don't want this edge, the backing, to roll to the front. So the first stitching I do is going to be close to this edge, about 3/8 of an inch in. Okay, I'm rolling the backing away so there's no chance that it'll show through, and I'm just top stitching 3/8 of an inch in. Rolling the backing under, top stitching at 3/8. And I'm going to work on giving this black border the illusion of a picture frame. And I think this will help also. But mainly, this is to roll that backing under, because there's nothing worse than having this show, you know, just what I don't want to happen is have something like this show. So, rolling it under, stitching at 3/8. This black border fabric is from Blueprint, and it's the Boundless fabric, and I really like it. I love the sheen in it. I love the hand of it, which is the feel and the draping. Very nice fabric. Now I'm going to press again. Now I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do in this space here, if anything, but the next thing I'm going to do is come in, top stitch right where these, I'm going to stay on the black side of the, in between these two borders. Just do a nice simple top stitch. I'm back at the beginning. I overlap by an inch just to make sure. Okay. Now I'm going to switch color threads and do, I'm going to switch the color threads and do top stitching right here. Actually, while I've got the black thread in place, I only have a few areas of black fabric. I'm going to come in and get these quilted before I'm done. Okay, and to quilt these, I'm just going to stitch right along the black fabric. I didn't go all the way to the edge because it seemed to want to make this buckle a little. So, I will come back and do that later. This time I tried to keep the fabric spread towards that so it wouldn't create a little bubble at the end. Let me Now I am going to top stitch along the inside of this tan inner border that's supposed to be the matting for this frame. While I was down here, I signed it with my name and the date. Be careful when you're doing this top stitching that sometimes the embellishment beside it can kind of push your quilt over while you're stitching. So keep an eye on your line. Don't just go by feel. Yeah, see, where it's thicker here, I'm going to have to pull out some stitches where I went off. And then let me start back here again, do this again. And you just have to force the machine to sew where you want it to sew. The thread I'm using is a tan connecting threads cotton spool. The black thread I used at first was a good Coach & Clark's XP, my favorite all-around piecing thread. I'm winding my bobbins with a nice neutral gray thread. That way it can be used no matter what thread I put in the top. You have to make sure that your tension's right. You don't want it to show through on the front side. But if your tension's good, then you're good. Okay, anywhere that's close to beige is going to get some areas are going to get quilted with this thread. And the main thing is this is an art quilt. And to consider it a quilt, it has to be quilted 3 layers. So I'm making sure that this fits that designation. Plus, with all of this sewing and embellishing, the quilting flattens it, because if I just tried to do all of this on just a simple piece of muslin, it would be so lumpy and it wouldn't hang right. So nailing it down like this is really a good thing. I'm having some poofiness issues, so I'm going to get in here with some gray thread, my good neutral, and see if I can't calm this down. That's why you normally with quilts, you start in the center and work your way out when you quilt. So that way you're pushing the fullness out, because fabric is not like wood or paper. It is more like a living thing. It moves, it stretches, it bends. But with this style, the quilt, with what I'm doing with this quilt, it's a little different because I cannot push everything to the outside. I have a finite edge. I have an enclosed border. So what I need to do is just kind of work with this and ease this fullness in so I don't get wrinkles. I don't mind a bit of texture. In fact, for a landscape, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So what I need to do is now do some quilting to add beach texture and kind of calm everything back down. It's been through a lot. And always know where your fabric is Make sure you've got room to let the fullness ease out. And actually, it might work to my advantage, making it look more like undulating sand. It didn't take that much, and because it does expand and contract and, you know, all of the above, you can usually get it back into some kind of shape. Now up here it's poofing, so I'm going to tame this. I just want to make sure I don't have any pleats or folds. That would not work well. Now I've got the blue fabric. I mean blue thread. Oh gee, what in the hell? Okay. And right here where it wants to pucker a little, I'll show you how I deal with that. I loosen a few stitches on the back. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is carefully push it and put my needle down. Now alternatively, you can just not sew it close to the edge to keep that from happening. But here, there we go. And your whole point is to keep it from puckering. So I pushed it away from the edge and stitched it down. So now it's fine.